my thing, but my son is very interested in going into medicine, and I don't get it, but I obviously will support him in it. But it's, again, thank you guys for your service, as it were, because it's always
Thank you.
great to have people like you who are willing to do the stuff that I would not be willing to do.
We appreciate that.
Now, what is the difference? You sometimes hear this on the news. It was a 3-alarm fire. And a lot of people don't know what that means. Does it mean the alarm rings 3 times? No, I think it means something different than that. Tell us what the difference between a 2-alarm, 3-alarm, 4-alarm fire means.
So a 1-alarm fire, that's your typical house is on fire, right? So for a 1-alarm fire, we send 3 engines and 1 ladder truck. So if you get a 2-alarm fire, that's everything just doubled. So you're going to get 6 engines and 2 ladder trucks. And then the alarms can increase from there depending on the size and intensity of the fire. So if you end up with a 3-alarm fire, you're getting 9 engines and 3 ladder trucks. So that's what the alarms mean. It's just 1 alarm is a set
And how many
number of units, and then they increase
it's
from
per
there.
like station would be 3-alarm would mean 3 stations basically. No, the 3 engines come out, and you have 3 engines per station. Is that what
We have 1 engine per
one
station.
So, why would they send out 3 engines for a typical fire in a house?
So believe it or not, fires are extremely manpower intensive. They take a lot of effort. They take a lot of guys to put out. So you have some guys making entry to actually put out the fire. You have some guys searching through the smoke-filled house, trying to find victims and things like that. You have other guys hooking into hydrants, bringing a water supply into the fire trucks. You have some people staying back, commanding the whole incident. So there's a lot of people involved on fires.
And how many men did you say per truck? 3?
Typically 3 in this county.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things, again, that this show is about real estate and things that affect it. Of course, we like to go broad and bring in a lot of different areas that people don't think of. But as a real estate show, what are the things that would affect home safety and how somebody should keep their house in order, to protect themselves, obviously, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, things like that. But can you talk generally about what would be good practice for a homeowner to do fire prevention?
Okay. So some of the things we see when we respond to calls and some of the biggest deficiencies we recognize when people keep their homes in check is that a lot of times people are not religious about keeping their smoke detectors up, either with a battery in at all or with a battery that's charged and not dead. So a rule of thumb that we try to preach that's really common is to change your batteries every daylight savings time. So most smoke detectors only last about 10 years too. So in some of these older homes, those smoke detectors might not even work anymore.
It's funny you say that because my home is 11 years old now, and we've been having smoke detector issues with its beeping in the middle of the night, that very frustrating thing. And I realized I have 6 smoke detectors in the house, and they're wired together. So I've just logged on to buy 6 new ones because I figured instead of changing one, I'm going to change all 6. And in doing my research, I discovered exactly that. I'm at that 10-year point, and time to replace them all.
That's great that you have that many smoke detectors in your house. Typically, we find maybe 2.
Yeah, it's frustrating, actually. It's inside in a room and outside a room, and they beep, and you never know which one is beeping. But again, of course, it's good for safety.
Absolutely.
What are you finding is the cause of most house fires?
By far, and it's not even close to the number 2. It's a pot on the stove. Somebody puts some food on the stove. They're heating up the oil. They're heating up the pan or whatever. They forget about it. They leave the house. They go do something else, and it starts a small fire in their kitchen. That or they left something in the oven and they forgot about it. That is by far the number 1 cause of house fires that we see.
Mm-hmm. I would think that that's a thing to bring up to. We've had elder care professionals on the show as well, and that's one of the biggest challenges they have is when people are living alone and they get a little older and then they get a little bit more forgetful and they leave the stove on. And that's usually some early signs that they might need assisted living. So that's interesting to know that. It used to be years ago smoking in bed, and a lit cigarette, but that I guess that's not happening as much anymore.
We don't see a whole lot of that. I'm not saying we never see it, but it's certainly not nearly as common as food left unattended.
What about fire extinguishers? Is there a rule of thumb on having them, where to have them, how often you should check them, that sort of thing?
Well, what I would recommend, there's not definitely a rule of thumb, but just in terms of a regular house size, at least have one for every 2,000 square feet. So, I mean, you can cover a lot of ground with a fire extinguisher, but a 2,000 square feet house, if your primary concern, if you have a fire in your home, is just life safety. Just get out, have an escape route, and get outside of the house, because you can replace property, but you can't replace life. But if you happen upon a small fire in the dryer or something, then have a fire extinguisher that's, for every 2,000 square feet that's readily available. And if we recommend, just let us do it, call us. That's what we're paid to do, and we're glad to do it, and we're good at it as well. So just, call us. But if you really want to try and put it out, then sure, having one fire extinguisher for every 2,000 square feet is a good rule of thumb.
And there's different kinds of fire extinguishers also. There's some that you should use in the kitchen and some you shouldn't use in the kitchen. Explain the differences of the makeup of the fire extinguishers.
So generally, when people go to buy a home fire extinguisher, it's one for general materials. So I won't go into technical aspects of them, but usually if you go buy a fire extinguisher, it's got a picture on the outside of the extinguisher that tells you what it's for. Paper products, wood products, and that's generally called a dry chemical extinguisher. That's the standard run-of-the-mill. That'll cover most of them. But when you're getting into grease fires and the type of extinguishers you'd probably find in a restaurant, they're called Class K. And that's not something that I would recommend everybody have in their house. At this point in time, you're running the risk of getting burned, by splatter. And at that point in time, it's a good idea to call us.
Right.
One of the things, you have a kind of a checklist that you can provide for people, a pamphlet. And how would they get a hold of that safety pamphlet? By calling the fire department or going online? And will they mail it to you, or is it something they can print out? Sure.
Well, we have our Station 1 is located at 114 First Street in the city of Cocoa. And at this location, we've got plenty of open literature that you can just come and get right in our front lobby. So during regular business hours, we're open 24/7. And we encourage people to come in and visit us, talk with us, ask us questions, and we've got plenty of handouts for them. So we don't have anything online currently, but like I said, come into our Station 1, or any of our stations for that matter. We've got literature that we're able to hand out.
Well, the one thing is that if you're in downtown Cocoa, is that what you said?
Yes.
That's the historic area, and some of those buildings are well over 100 years old. So I imagine the wiring in those are getting pretty faulty, and that's another hazard of the people that are buying older homes, or they even have a home that might even be 30 or 40 years old. The wiring is one of the causes of a lot of damage. Have you seen that as well?
Certainly.
One of the things that Jonathan and I have seen in the past is these panel boxes. And there's a company, I guess, that went out of business, Pacific Federal, and they had these panel boxes. And if they were made around the mid-'80s, they cause fires. Have you seen any results from these panel boxes in homes and things like that? Or had anybody call out for that? Well, there's a good tip. That'll be something that we'll be able to share with you, because we're finding out that these panel boxes need to be replaced because they say they'll start fires.
One of the questions I have regarding, again, if you're dealing with fires and residential fires, is pets. And I know in my own world I have the little sticker on my window that we have the pets, so that you guys, if you come out, know we have a pet. My family is older now, so we're all probably sufficiently wise, but when we had young children, I could envision my son, being more concerned about the dog than himself and things like that. How do you attend to or deal with that kind of pet situation? Do you guys?
So our first and foremost thing we go to a fire for is life safety. So if it's a human, obviously it takes priority over a pet, but we're also looking for pets. And we save plenty of pets. Usually cats. Dogs are a little bit, smarter, I guess. They get out of the building. Typically, they follow their owners. Cats, they like to hide. So we're always searching for cats. Sometimes we've even had guinea pigs and little interesting animals like that.
And they go under the bed. That's where they like to hide, right?
Or stay in their cage for like the guinea pigs,
No, but cats will
hide under the couch, go under bed, absolutely. We've saved a lot of cats.
Turtle in a tank.
We'll come and get it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come and get it. We'll take the whole tank.
All right.
We'll bring it out to you.
Have you had any of those interesting, you see them sometimes on YouTube, any interesting stories where you've saved a dog and its puppies or anything like that? Has anything like that happened recently?
So this guy right here.
And he's pointing to?
I'm pointing to firefighter Alex Candalerio, who was on a crew that made one of the world's most famous pet rescues on national news was seen on Facebook, I think somewhere around 50 million times.
Really? Well, let's hear about that.
So, yeah, that was actually my first year. I think I'd been on the job about 8 months, and we got called out actually to a county area. So as we were talking about earlier, we cover to the end of the city bounds, but sometimes we have mutual aid agreements with other surrounding areas. So, and the county asked us to come out because they had a report of dogs trapped in a storm drain. So we went out. This was just west of the city in front of Bob Steele Chevrolet, and we had 3 pit bulls that somehow found their way into the storm drain and then couldn't get out. And luckily, one of our officers was driving down the road, heard them barking from his car, pulled over, saw them. Their heads were barely, their noses were coming out of the storm drain. So he called us. We worked closely with Brevard Animal Services, and we were able to remove the storm drain. I guess the dogs had gone in there to chase like a possum or something. So we just did our jobs. It wasn't anything special to us. We went back and rescued 3 pit bulls out of this drain and thought nothing of it. We went back to work, 10, 15 minutes later, and next thing we know, I've got family calling from California telling me that they saw us on the news about, rescuing 3 pit bulls.
Were these grown pit bulls or
yeah,
puppies?
They were full-grown pit bulls.
You have to reach your arm down into a drain on a pit bull to pull it out, and you don't know if these are friendly pit bulls, and usually they're panicked by that time anyway, no matter what kind of dog it is. Well, good for you. Those are the kind of things we always think of firefighters getting up in the tree to get the kitten out of it,
That happens way more often than you think it will. Yeah. So, we've averaged probably about 5 to 10 pet rescues within the last year and a half.
Wow.
So it's really common.
Literally just get up in a tree and...
That happens quite a bit.
So you do a lot of things that aren't technically fire related. They're rescue related. And sometimes you hear about people in other states, but I suppose it happens here too, where a child falls into a well or something like that, or an open pit. They're going to be calling the fire rescue, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. I had one call where a kid climbed a tree too high and was afraid to come down. So we actually climbed up into the tree. It wasn't to save a cat, it was to save a kid. And we were about 25 feet up in the tree.
Oh, my.
And we carried the kid down.
Do they still use, when people have to jump out of buildings, do they still have those big, looks like trampolines that they hold on to? What are they?
No, I don't know of anywhere that has those.
No.
They just use the ladder now. You come down on the ladder.
Technology has definitely advanced.
That's right, because I would want to be jumping into one of those trampoline things. But it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. And there's all kinds of tips that you need to know about. We've got about another maybe 30 seconds a minute. You all train the youngsters at the schools. You volunteer to go to the schools and talk about fire safety. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're always in schools teaching kids about fire safety, teaching them just about our jobs.
That's great. Do you have the Boy Scouts or the schools visit the fire stations?
Of course. We have a lot of visitors.
What would be 1 or 2 of the big tips that you want the youngsters to know?
Okay. If you have an emergency or you have a fire in your house, the biggest thing we tell the kids is that we're in this big gear and we're breathing funny because we're on air. It's just not to be scared of us. So we're there to help and we're there to get the kids out. But before we even get there, the biggest danger in a fire is the smoke. So not to breathe in the smoke, to get low and stay low to the ground. And when there's firemen in the house, call out, yell out for help, and we'll be there to help.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. You have been listening to the wonderful Cocoa Fire Department, Alan Clark and Alex Candalerio. Is that pronounced right?
That's close enough.
You better say it correctly then.
It's Candalerio.
Candalerio. And they've been joining us on Your Hometown Solutions. Jonathan Lack, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any sign-off?
No, just be safe out there.
That's right. Be safe. And come to the event and go online and check out it's called the Memorial Stair Climb event, which is coming up on September the 9th. And that's still at Tiger Stadium, is that right?
Yes, Tiger Stadium, Cocoa High School, September 9th at 6 p.m.
Thank you again, gentlemen. And this is Jean Newell signing off from Your Hometown Solutions. Bye for now.